Gijima is a fully empowered South African ICT company which supplies services to large corporates and government departments. Its CEO, Jonas Bukhosi, recently quit the company. It has a market cap of 416 million rand, but is currently not profitable. So Gijima has gone through a lot of headwinds over the past couple of years. Where are we right now with the company?
Headwinds, I think, is the understatement of the show so far. They wrote off almost half the business off after the Huama online contract imploded. I mean, they've lost half the EBSA contract, lost the SAPS contract to a Vestact-led consortium. It's really been a really horrendous a couple of years for Gijima, and then to top it all, their CEOs now essentially left. So it's tough to say where they are at this point.
Paul, what do you make of Gijima right now?
Look, I mean, back in the day when AST Abraxas was the name of the business, they picked up lots of deals with government departments and also with the big corporates like ABSA and so on, because they had benefited from that initial wave where corporates decided they were better off outsourcing their IT system infrastructure and support desk and all of that stuff. So then it went through a transition. Robert Gumede took over, and I remember when Jacob Zuma was appointed to the presidency, people said, yeah, you must buy this one because this is a Zuma stock. His friends are going to get big contracts. And it ran, from 40 cents to a rand. It must have been in about, sort of 2003-04. So it is another reminder that companies of this scale, you got to be careful. There's no guarantees in life. The contracts that you have, you're not necessarily going to get them next year. So now they're in a sort of slash and burn retreat phase where they're having to kind of restructure the company, reduce its overhead. Sure, there's still a lot of interest out there in outsourcing and in cloud computing and in security, and so they've got some real expertise, some experienced engineers, but it's difficult to know at around 40 cents a share with all the problems. They don't really have a reputation in the market for positive dynamism and growth. That's what they've got to try and recover. So at the moment, it's definitely not a hot for me.
So looking at the African story, would Africa then be the next step for them, Keith?
No, actually, I think they've got to sort out the home base first. I've actually coined a new term for Gijima, consistently once off problems. The regular once-offs, they have a look back at the last couple of sets of results. There's constantly once-offs. And Paul touched on it. You've just lost a chunk of revenue, so you have to realign your cost base. Now, at least Standard Bank was pretty direct when they did this. They called it retrenchments. Gijima called it everything else except that. This was really retrenchments. You had to realign your cost base. You lost your CEO. You've just had a fire sale of an asset which was used to be GMSI, Graphical Mining Solutions. They renamed it Mine RP. But it was actually a quality asset, which, in my understanding, right up until they sold it, it was a core asset. And that's what you call a fire sale. So everything's going wrong here.
So everything going wrong. So Paul, I doubt you've got any stock in this.
No, too small. And I mean, even at the higher end of the sort of corporate outsourcing and tech market, you've got to be quite careful and selective. So definitely down here, wrestling with the Department of Home Affairs and other people like that, definitely not hot for me. Avoid.
Keith, hot or not?
Unfortunately, the IT outsourcing market is reputational based, and you get a snowball effect when you start having these public blowouts of other contracts and losing other ones, and that gains momentum. Then you have a fire sale, consistently regular once-off costs coming through that haven't finished. The client-centric costs are still coming through in the next period as well, and you lose your CEO. This is not hot. This is not hot at all.
Two not hots for